I'm going to give you two names because if you really want to dive deep, everything you need is in these books. One is The Metabolic Approach to Cancer, and the other one is The Cancer Revolution by Lee Aaron Connolly. Those two books will talk about all these specialized tests that I think even in the UK you can get that are not widely available. One is about circulating cancer cells. So you can actually predict, are there still cells circulating in the body? And that really helps you to gear treatments, because if they're not circulating in the body, it's probably localized and very safe to keep doing what you're doing. And if there is circulating cells in the body, then you know you need to be more aggressive. So that's one of the cutting edge tests. And again, I don't know the lab, but those two books would have references to exact lab testing. Number two, nowadays, at least in the US, and I bet you could find UK, we have places that are doing whole body MRIs. I just had one a year ago in LA, and there's about maybe the site that I used was oh, this will come to me too, the name of the company in a second. I'm sure that'll come to me. And you can go and get a full body scan and then see if there's any cysts or changes in tissues all over the body. And I feel like this is the cutting edge of what we're going to be doing in the future for all of us who want prevention. So the circulating cancer cells, and those are just so far above an actual test for just PSA. So knowing that, that will help you guide treatment. And then nowadays, there's so many places. One of my favorites that I've actually been to is Santa Viva in Mexico, and they actually have really cutting edge ozone and IV therapies and biophoton therapies, and so kind of all aspects, including incredible food, the more biophysical kinds of things, and then also the IVs and nutrition. So if you really got into a tough spot with your therapy right now, you could go somewhere like that and get much more aggressive treatments that were a little bit more natural and prone to less side effects.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Okay, another question that had come in is, how can patients incorporate principles of functional medicine into their daily lives to improve their resilience against chronic illnesses?
So I love to start. This can be so overwhelming. And one of the things I love to talk about, but can be very depressing, is environmental toxic load. And the truth is, this is exponentially increasing the chemicals in our water, in our air, in our food supply every year. And so if we're not deliberate about what inputs we put into our body, we are behind the game. And so I do love to talk about this because it's very doable for most of us. And it's just the idea of clean air, clean water, clean food. Sounds simple. And what you can do is, just because it's way more important to put those inputs, the basics of your everyday life and habits and lifestyle, than it is to take thousands of dollars of supplements, even though that's also can be a good thing. So I love starting with the practical inputs, which is clean air. 80% of our environmental toxic load is in the air that we breathe. So making sure at home, maybe in your car, maybe at work, you have an air filter or some way to filter. You want a high quality HEPA filtration system. But nowadays, my recommendations are something with a VOC filter as well. VOC is volatile organic compounds, and those are 2.5 microns or below. So it's like the fumes, the smoke, the gassing materials, even exhaust from the roads outside your house. And so you really want a good HEPA filter with a VOC filter. The top three brands, there's probably others that I know out there, are IQ Air is excellent, Air Doctor is excellent, and Austin Air. Those three are fantastic and phenomenal. There's probably more, but those three have a HEPA filter with a VOC filter. So air quality, clean air, clean water, making sure you have filtered water in your house. It's a very, very basic thing. I live in a condo, so it's hard to install the big whole house filters, but at the very minimum, I have a really good quality fridge filter that will filter out that water and all the 200 plus chemicals that can be in there. So you don't want to be drinking tap water, and you want to avoid plastic water bottles whenever possible, because those are leaching that BPA. Even if they're BPA free nowadays, I think any plastic is dangerous. And then clean food. And this is where you choose to put your money towards the best quality that you can. And if you can't afford all organic, you want to at least go with the dirty dozen that are most commonly sprayed with pesticides. You can find that list every year on environmentalworkinggroup.org, and they list the top sprayed foods with pesticides. So if you just can't afford all organic, at least you buy those foods, like strawberries and celery and peppers are always on that list, broccoli, but then things like bananas or avocados, which can be peeled, are less likely to need to be organic if you can't afford all of it. So clean air, clean water, clean food. And then I love to add clean mind, clean body, clean spirit. And in that realm, the thoughts that we think, the dealing with our childhood trauma, those things are all, I think, so key, so foundational, and so accessible to almost anyone, regardless of income or resources. And then you can do IVs and you can do all these fancy things. My things are daily habits that keep me healthy. I like to take Epsom salt baths every night. They're affordable, they're easy. I feel so much better when I do those. I have a PEMF mat. Now that might be a little more costly, but it's one of my favorite hacks for optimizing blood flow, optimizing healing, optimizing brain. You can do small red lights or red light therapy for injuries, for facial collagen production, for brain. So those are just a few of the tips and tricks that are really pretty practical.
Okay, that's awesome. I love that because it's something that people can do or just look at what do they have going on right now and make any changes that they might be able to based on what their pocketbook, permits at this point too. So thank you so much for sharing some of those options with us. And then it is one of those things too, where just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy, but if it's
Right.
simple, why not try it, right? Okay, so Cliffy has actually submitted a question. She's on with us live now today. And she says, what can help with testing, prevention, and treatment of kidney stones? Thanks.
So kidney stones are 80% oxalates, and oxalates are formed in our body either by difficult breakdown in oxalates. We can internally, if we have mold exposure, make more oxalates, or if we have yeast overgrowth, make more oxalates. So I will actually test these on organic acids, and if they are high in the organic acids or patients have complaints, if you have a normal diet and you find you have oxalates and you go to zero or very low oxalates, you can actually have dumping of oxalates. So I never recommend that patients dramatically change the oxalate level in their diet. If you do maybe 20% decrease at a time, because otherwise you'll be in a lot of pain. Oxalates are little crystals or shards of glass in your joints and your bones and your kidneys that make stones. And I'm saying this with stones because it's all related to oxalate load. So really understanding oxalates is where it's at. Now, you can bind oxalates if you have them in food with calcium citrate or magnesium citrate. So people with oxalate issues, I often recommend they take calcium citrate with their meals. But the real issue for me is where's the source? And typically there's a mold exposure or a yeast overgrowth that if treated, those oxalate levels will go down. And if you look at list of oxalate foods, it's really good stuff. It's almonds and it's blueberries and it's spinach. So I never like to have patients on a really low oxalate diet for a long time because it's good foods. But if you have issues with kidney stones, you would want to watch oxalates in food.
Okay. Cliffy, hopefully that answered your question. If it did not, go ahead and, raise your hand again or go ahead and put it in the chat. But that's great. So another question that came through are, what are some common misconceptions about the relationship between science and faith in the context of healing? And I recommend those.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I love tackling this in my book because what seems to often be totally dichotomous in nature, whether it's right brain, left brain, science and faith, and any number of things, right? We can actually, if we really look at it, they go better together than separate, peanut butter and jelly, right? And so I love talking about this because I feel like I'm a scientist at heart. I did a bioengineering background. I love using my analytical left brain mind, and I love to prove when I'm doing testing or whatever, the science is really, really important to me. But at the same time, I can also hold in my hand the idea that things that are outside our visible realm of science, the unexpected, the miracles, the healing that we don't see coming and we don't expect, is also true. And we know from physics and quantum physics, especially, that the power of energy, the power of hope, the power of love, the power of faith and belief in something else is possible. There is actually data now to support that those things that we might think of principles that are more faith-based actually have very pure and true validity in our healing. And what I found in my journey is I was like all left brain analytical in the beginning. And then I've always had a strong faith, but it's really swung to equally using them. And what happens, especially as women, and not maybe all of you are women, but I see a lot of women on the call, sometimes we as women, I think, have a deeper intuition. And because we're in a very masculine driven world, whether we're healers, practitioners, doctors, we kind of get told that it's not reliable to trust that intuition.